analytics or dashboard. It is out of scope for this particular session, for this particular bootcamp, but I am building a session, probably one session or two sessions on analytics, and from scratch. You need to understand, this is a hands-on, so you need to understand everything from bit by bit, right? I wanted to first set up your environment, then we can jump onto slides, learn a little bit, and then come back onto environment again. Okay, that's what I wanted to do with you both, with you guys. Now, once you download, so just before you before you download anything, remember, the good thing about Elasticsearch is that you can download, you can install your application server, your Elasticsearch server, not just by downloading a binary. You can also use the package managers, or if you have Docker, you can use a Docker as well. So either of them, any of them will suit your purpose, right? So you don't need to worry at all. In fact, you can also use a Docker Compose for creating both Elasticsearch and Kibana in one go as well. So let's take one step at a time. Choose your operating system, whoever you are, whatever you are, wherever you are running, download that particular. I'm on a Mac OS, I'm going to download that one, right? So simply click on that one. You should have a downloadable folder. You should get the data downloaded to your platform, wherever you are running. So in this instance, you should have, I'm not sure whether I should be able to, whether you can see here or not, but I have already downloaded pre-hand, so there is Elasticsearch and there's Kibana. Both of them are downloaded, something like this. Okay, so let me create a folder here so that you'll understand what we are doing at the moment. So I have I'm just going to put that into temp, right? So just go and download the Elasticsearch as well as change that to Kibana. That should give you exactly the same copy of it, or get the Kibana's link. So if you download it, you should be able to get the download link as well. So in this instance, I have copied to a platform folder called temp. So all I'm doing is that I'm just going to extract them. Nothing major. I'm not going to do much actually other than just extracting them, right? So that's as simple as you can think of, right? So I got Elasticsearch 842. You can also have something called Kibana 842 as well, coming up in a second. Now, if you're pretty new to what is Elasticsearch and what is Kibana kind of a question, hold your thought on that one, because we are going to go through the Kibana in a second. But just to give you a very quick update, Kibana is nothing but a UI tool, a web application for you to interact with Elasticsearch. Elasticsearch is a backend server which does the job of holding your data, which lets you do searches, which lets you query the search, which lets you do the analytics. But for that, you need to talk to Elasticsearch. Elasticsearch exposes some APIs to you, and those APIs are actually hidden away. Kibana is one of those tools which uses those APIs to talk to Elasticsearch behind the scenes. But we see Kibana in action as well once we get these things set up. As you can see, I have, I don't need these two. I can just download, get rid of them. As you can see, I got two of them here. That is Kibana and Elasticsearch. So let me go back to let me see if I can go to my temp directory. That's the one I think is temp, right? This is where I think, let me know if you want. GRE, it will be, again, please do ask my producer by your survey form. I'm pretty sure we should be able to accommodate a bit earlier as well. Okay, that is about the Kibana visualizations. I just happened to see GR's chat, so I'm just responding to that. So we are here in the temp folder, right? Remember, we have these two. Do let me know actually if you want more, a little bit. The size of the things needs to be changed or anything like that, just do let me know, okay? So we got two folders here. So let me go to Elasticsearch 842, right? Now, really quickly, there are some configurations that you need to worry about. There are some folders that you need to understand about Elasticsearch. Remember, we have 3 hours to explore Elasticsearch, right? So, but this is the first ever time if you are exposed to Elasticsearch, just be patient, understand really 2 or 3 concepts here, and then go away, okay? So there's a config folder here, and there's a bin folder here, and there's some logs folder here. Right? These are the mostly important ones. Rest of them you don't need to worry about. You can simply ignore them. All these things, modules, and at the moment you don't need to worry at all. The fundamental thing, if you go to bin folder, that is binary folder, you see a lot of Elasticsearch related scripts, right? So not all of them we are going to use it, except today we are going to use mostly Elasticsearch, this shell script. But you can always use your scripts for setting up passwords or getting some plugins. Any of them actually you can start using these ones, including the resetting the passwords and service tokens and things like that, right? But for today, we are only going to be concentrating on the Elasticsearch shell script. Now, if you are on Windows, there should be something called a .batch or .cmd file. It's like a command file, right? I mean, it's nothing more than a command, execution of your script in a command terminal. Okay, so that's the build folder. We are going to come back to the build folder in a second. Let me just clear the screen, and if I show you once again, I'm going to go to config folder. Okay, here is where the next important things are always here. Okay, now here we are going to do one particular thing to change here. Okay, so because that's what the configuration file is all about. So whenever somebody says that tweak your configuration file, is always going to be config/elasticsearch.yaml, right? So this is your configuration file. If you want to change the heap memory and etc., you go to JVM options, right? And if you want to add some roles and users and etc., this is where you're going to do that. Okay, but at this point of time, I'm only going to change some bits in here. Rest of them are going to be, we are going to leave it to you. I'm going to leave it to you to experiment with them. But there's a really huge documentation that you can work through that. You don't need to worry about me hand-holding how to set up the heap memory on your machine. Okay. Now, if you open this one, the elasticsearch.yaml file, if you edit that, or if you go on to the VI on that, you can see everything. If you scroll them, everything else is commented out, right? There's nothing that you think is uncommented. Every property is completely commented out. The reason is that Elasticsearch works out by defaults. If you don't give a particular value, it assumes that there is a default value for that and then picks it up. It's kind of a conventional configuration, right? So we just don't need to worry about everything, right? Just start. This is the best way to provide a software. If you're in a software consultancy or software business, give the users as much as possible the unambiguous way of starting up the servers or running up the scripts and things like that. It's really. I mean, if this particular property is not set, doesn't matter. I'm going to use some port and then go forward rather than asking you to input that particular one. Of course, I know that's something which I like it. Anyway, there are a couple of properties that we would come back and do that. But for now, remember there's a cluster name and node name. We're not going to change that. Okay, there's a path data, path logs. We're not going to change that, but keep this in mind. We are going to come back to some port numbers and network ports if we can towards the end of this hour. Okay, if we have some time, but I'm not going to change any of them except one particular property because I'm just going to go to the end of it. Sorry, let me go to end of it. Here, I'm just going to add only one particular property. I'm just going to post this property as well in the chat. Expect.security.enabled equals to false, set to false. So what I'm doing here is that I am trying to say to Elasticsearch to say to disable the security. That is, I'm not going to be worried, at least at this point of time, to let me log into my own server by using passwords and usernames, right? I can just simply give me the access to my own local machine, my own Kibana. You don't need to worry about it. That's the idea here. So we are disabling the security here, right? Now, I don't need to tell you this one, but this is really only for the testing and development purposes, right? In production, you will never do this one, or you should never do that one. Okay, so let me give you this property. Just this property should be attached or should be edited in your Elasticsearch config. Let me go to you in the chat. SM is asking what folder should this be opened. I mean, this should be in the config folder. There's a elasticsearch.yaml. Whether you're in Windows, whether you're in Linux, or whether you're Mac OS, doesn't matter. It should always be in the same folder called config. Whenever I say elasticsearch.yaml, it is the configuration folder which is available on your on the same folder. Once you have unzipped your binary, it should create those folders for you straight away, and those files are expected to be present in that folder or in those folders. Okay, now I have managed to change. Remember, in the Elasticsearch configuration, I did not make any changes to the ports or any changes to the cluster configuration except hiding that security setting to null or to false, right? That's all I did. Yeah. Now go back to your bin directory. Now we done your job of setting the Elasticsearch property to expect property, disabling that security to thing. So what I would suggest is that let's go to bin folder now. Okay. In the bin folder, we have Elasticsearch, right? So simply create, let me clear this and then simply start Elasticsearch. I'm just going to start my Elasticsearch like that. I'm hoping that it's not, yeah, there's already there, but if this is, I mean, I'm just going to kill this one, but that will start your Elasticsearch straight away. Okay. You don't need to do much. You can simply, the Elasticsearch is going to start rolling. As you can see, now at the moment it might fail, but that's what I'm just going to stop it. But ultimately, that's where you go, your Elasticsearch into. So I already have one here. It just simply starts Elasticsearch, right? So now, if you look at it, right, Elasticsearch is actually, what? I'm just going to kill this one, right? I'm just going to kill this one, and then I'm going to start your new one. I think here is because the one which you are exposed. Let's do that. Remember, this is on the M folder. Yeah, M folder, right? So Elasticsearch. I'm going to start my Elasticsearch here. Okay. That's cool. Now the Elasticsearch is started up. Let me open a new, or it's going to start in a second. In the meantime, I'm just going to go back to my new terminal, right? Here, instead of Elasticsearch, I'm just going to go to Kibana. And fortunately, Kibana is much easier than that. You don't need to change anything in Kibana. Even if I can show you the config folders, let's say, let me show you the. Let me show you. This is Kibana folders, by the way, guys. This, if you see, it has got similar kind of thing, like bin folder, config folder, data, and logs, and rest of them like plugins and others. For now, let's go to config, because you think that we may be changing some config. Absolutely not. At the moment, we don't need to worry at all. Okay, let's say I have started, or I have configured. I want you to. My Elasticsearch should be running here. Yeah, it's up and running. Good. We'll come back to that in a second. But if I go back to my Kibana YAML file, they should have everything commented out as well, exactly like the way I said to you earlier, right? So if you see, everything is commented out. Nothing else is for us to worry about. Okay. Now, if I go back to first line, there is something called a server host here and the server port, right? These two are pretty much the servers or the location where your Kibana is going to run once it is kicked off, if you don't change them, right? If you change them, you can say, I don't want 5601, I want 9200, sorry, whatever, not 9200. If you want some other port, let's say 1099, that's your choice. You can change it, right? That's your server port. But for the simplicity, I'm not going to change this information at the moment, right? Because I already have Elasticsearch up and running, I simply run the Kibana by going into bin directory. Here, I run the Kibana as well. And this Kibana, when it starts up, first thing all is going to do is going to look for a location. So it looks for a server which is up and running, that the Elasticsearch server. So it's got a glue, actually. It's got a mechanism to talk to the Elasticsearch server to say, are you there? If Elasticsearch says that I'm here, then it moves forward for starting up. Okay, so that's what it is. If you look at it, it says that Elasticsearch, the Kibana server is running on 5601. Yeah, that's what it is. So this is ultimately this is your Kibana host. Okay. Now I have two things here. One is that I have Elasticsearch server running here. I have Kibana running here. Okay. Now both of them are running on two different ports. Okay. So I just had to show you how to access both the ports. The first one, the Elasticsearch server, is going to run on something called 9200. I'm sorry, I can't increase I can increase this size, but I can't increase the size of the address bar. I don't know. I need to check actually how to do that, but maybe some other time. Okay, so this 9200, when I go to a local host to 9200, that's actually calling your Elasticsearch. So if you see your Elasticsearch, this Elasticsearch is actually running on port called 9200. If you scroll up a bit, you should be able to see somewhere 9200 is the reporting. So I can't find this at the moment, but something 9200. It should be, certainly I can tell you on that one. If you remember, 9200. This is a node address, so node-to-node communication is going to be happening on 9300, whereas API calls are actually going to be are exposed on the 9200. Yeah, that's the one. Okay, so that's your 9200. So Elasticsearch or 9200. Now, if you invoke this particular one, Elasticsearch is going to send you a JSON response. If you are new to JSON, JSON is the JavaScript object notation that is simply some sort of a mechanism of name value pairs set up in a format that you can see really. I mean, you can see very easily, or you can read them easily as well. Give me 2 seconds. It's a massive task, but luckily, folks at Elastic have done really awesome job of you don't need to worry about everything. I can do everything for you kind of a thing, right? Because they have done really massively beautiful architecture, I must admit. As we go along, we'll appreciate that architecture, appreciate how easy for us to talk to it and what exactly things going on behind the scenes which are hidden away from us, right? But that's a different discussion we're going to have. Now, here there are a few things you should understand. One is that obviously there is a machine that is a node name. If your node name is not going to be given, it's going to take it to from your local machine. That is, my machine is Mac Mini, so that's what has been set to. There is a cluster name property which we haven't set it up, and that's the reason why it's got Elasticsearch. But if you change it, you can certainly change that one. Now, in the version, you see something, a very, very, very important concept, a very, very important thing you need to go and go away with this bit of information. There is something called Lucene version, right? So, what is Lucene? Elasticsearch is a wrapper around a text library called Apache Lucene. Lucene is somebody like Doug Cutting. He, I think it's 1999, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, 1998 or 99. He released his first version in the late 90s. It's a text library written in Java for full text searches. So basically, what I mean to say is that let's say I was building in 2000. Let's say I was building a search application, and at that point of time, Elasticsearch was not there, neither Solar nor any of the other search engines. So at that point of time, I have this Apache Lucene. I integrate, or that means I invoke the APIs of Elasticsearch as a library. Simply dump your jar file into your application, and you should be able to invoke the libraries for indexing the data, for getting the data, for searching the things. And of course, you have to create your own APIs and on top of it for the clients to interact, right? This Apache Lucene is the fundamental building block for your Elasticsearch. So it's as simple as, if you look at this one, let me clearly take it away. If you look at this one, so this is your Elasticsearch. Sorry, this is your Lucene. This is called Apache Lucene. And around that, Elasticsearch has been superbly created architecture for it to be distributed. Remember, Lucene is a library, I said, right? Now, having a library, let's suppose this is Elasticsearch, I said, right? Now, if I'm building everything from scratch, let's say I'm doing Elasticsearch library, search engine today, right? You don't need to go with Elasticsearch. You can always simply get the Apache Lucene in your application. Let's say this is my Java-based application, right? It's a full-fledged application. Part of that one is going to be using the using the search. So in that case, I can simply drop the Apache Lucene's library here, right? So any search clients any search inputs are coming along, I just can process through the through Apache Lucene and spit out the data back to database or wherever you want, right? And then ultimately send a response back to the client as well, right? So that is basically, you can use the library, but it's pretty much on the Java side. You have to do that one. You also don't need to get, you also don't get the scalability of it. For example, if you're running 100 Apache Lucenes or 100 services, then how are you distributing your data and those kind of things? I mean, there are other things that Apache Lucene will not be giving you straight away, but ultimately, Elasticsearch folks, what they have done is that they have taken the Lucene as the core library, and they wrapped around everything around that. Okay, but we are not going to dig out details into finding out that information at this point of time. Okay, but keep it this. The only takeaway point is that Apache Lucene is the building block for the text functionality, for the text libraries, or the text searchability of Elasticsearch. Right, it's a bread and butter of Elasticsearch. That's something which you should keep in mind. Now that is the 9200, but 9200 luckily it exposes some APIs as well called CAT API. CAT stands for compact and aligned text. Okay, so here you can say what is my health of my server, right? If you do this one, for example, I can just send you this one just to be on the safe side, so that you could also use that API. If you say verbose, if you do that one, it will give you a little bit more in detail. So if you say cluster is called Elasticsearch, that's what it is. The status seems to be green. That's really good. Node total, node dot so and so, and so on and so forth, right? So it's kind of happy path, happy days, right? So it's all green. Status is absolutely green. We are going to see actually what happens to the search in a second. Okay, that's pretty much on the Elasticsearch. I mean, you also have few more APIs here, but we don't need to worry about all those things. I mean, we can always do that later on. Now, going with the same flow, let's pick up this Kibana as well. So Kibana is, as I said, is running on 5601. So simply, if you go back to your Elasticsearch or the browser, you should be able to go to the Elasticsearch Kibana here without having an issue. So this is your first ever. If this is your first ever looking at Kibana, this is the way it's going to look. Actually, this is the web application. You can see it's really awesomely designed. It's pretty responsive. It does quite a lot of things. It's got really thousands of things that you can do on here. Most of the things, the management, administration of Elasticsearch, including running queries, etc., you can do here. Okay. There is something called DevTools here on the main. If you scroll down a bit, you can see the DevTools, or you can also go to the hamburger menu here. You see on the left hand side in the analytics and observability and management. If you scroll down to management, you should see DevTools there. Okay. Either way, you're going to come to this particular page where you see a Kibana, how should I put it, a console, or it's called DevTools console, where you see a left pane and right pane, where you input your queries on the left hand side. You send that to the server by clicking on the send button, and server is going to give you a response back to you. Remember the same thing what we got earlier when you access the 9200 for the cluster health or cat health. The same thing what you got it here. The cat was in a tabular format, whereas here is a JSON format. That's all. That's the difference, right? So I'm just going to say, can you give me the health of the cluster? So in this case, this is called an API, and this is the endpoint. Okay. Now, ultimately, how does it know? I mean, what happens here is, if you look at this guy, it's going to use something called. So it's actually going to be it's going to invoke a cluster API call on this URL. So this entire thing is a URL, but fortunately, because your Elasticsearch is running at 9200, and because Kibana knows that 9200 is a Elasticsearch host, I don't need to worry at all. So that means it simplifies the URL for you, which is a really big bonus, especially you're working with multiple clients, multiple queries here in this Kibana tools, right? For every query, you don't need to add that URL bit. But if you wanted to work on curl, I'm not sure whether you understand. I can show you that one. It's localhost 5601 CW. I'm just going to post you that one again. Okay, that's the one. Okay, so if you're from a curl background, curl is nothing more than a command line tool for accessing the URLs. you can convert this into URL as well by just clicking. If you see there's a button here, there's a spanner. If you click on that one, it should give you a copy as curl. And if once it's been copied, you can go on to your terminal and invoke the same thing in here. If you see, that's what exactly. As I told you, it's going to be adding that URL here, and it's going to copy that here. So if you invoke that one, right, you are going to get the same information what has been given to me, right, earlier. So if you see, the status seems to be green. So this is all the information what I got it from the server. But instead of using the Kibana's URL APIs, I'm just using the curl, right? So this is the API call for getting the cluster health. That's the thing. So anything you want to write, if you want to export your commands as curl commands, just simply come over here and then copy them. So you can write as big as commands here or in this particular screen, and ultimately you can try it out. And if you know that this is really is working perfectly fine, then you can copy that and send it over to your manager or your friend or your business list for them to execute on the terminal. Okay. Now, once so this is the cluster health, you got it. So you should be able to get the data back like this, which is a JSON representation of data. There's a little bit of information that you may have to take it away from here. First thing is that obviously the cluster name is so and so. The status seems to be green, and there is something called number of nodes and number of data nodes and so on and so forth. Right. I will go through with you the concept of nodes, concept of shards, concept of primaries and replicas in the second hour, because I want to try it out a few bits before we go away for a break, right? So I pause here for 2 seconds because I wanted to check out with you to see where you guys are with respect to the setting up of this environment. I am hoping that you have either got through to the point where you're able to run some queries with me along with me, or at least you have been logging into the interactive scenarios where you're this particular one. Sorry, where at least since February this year. I think it was released in February this year. Elasticsearch, obviously released 8 version. They are up to 8. That is 7.x. They used to have security was disabled, or security was by default not enabled on the distributions, right? This is a kind of I wouldn't say in the hindsight they should have done this, but there were instances, they were hacked or something happened. I don't remember exactly the cases, but they have moved away from that concept of having the Elasticsearch not having the security enabled. They stopped that, and in 8.x from 8 version, they started having the security as the primary focus. So every Elasticsearch, when you install, download, and install, it will ask you to start using the Elasticsearch in a secure manner or in a secured environment. Okay, right. Now for that, I will show you one particular way of how to do that, because this might be throwing you off sometimes. So I do have my Elasticsearch running here. I think I can, this I don't really want. Anything I don't want, I'll just get it off. So Elasticsearch and Kibana is here, and this is where, okay. So if you look at it, right, so I'm going to happen to have a secured, let me clear this, then you'll see what I mean. I also happen to have a secured location and unsecured location. Okay, actually there's nothing different between this one other than in the unsecured notation is exactly same as your temp. What I meant to say is that, here I have messed up with the file with by setting up the expect security to be disabled here. Same thing what we have done earlier in the temp folder. Exactly same thing. So whether you run it from here or this doesn't matter, right? But let's go to the secured one. Okay, secured one is something which you may find I haven't. I did not change. I did not put that. I did not stamp that configuration. The security expects the configuration to false. Okay, so fortunately, I still was able to move forward. I'm just going to show you what happens. So if you go to that end of it, see, did you see that I don't have that that property set up in this one. So that means actually that is a secured one, right? Now, how do you do this security one? Is very, very straightforward. You don't need to worry too much. First time what happens is that when you start your application server, how much time we have? If I want to, I can certainly show that for you, but I'm not sure whether that's going to be useful or not. But there are some slides in there, maybe issues. But I'll give your application server, right? You will see something your Elasticsearch server will say, I'm setting up my own security. This is so and so. This is a password for Elastic user, and this is a certificate, and this is a token, and so on and so forth. It kind of prints out everything for you, right? Now, what you can do is that once it prints out, actually, if you want, we can always try that. I don't have time to. Let's not do that. What happens is that you follow those instructions. Okay, go to Kibana, start up Kibana, and once you start up Kibana, it's actually going to say, okay, now you have given me this one. Can you give me the mechanism of how to help